Ladies and gentlemen, today is February 26th, 2013. And this is the KNKL Show, episode 72! I'm your host, Kienan Lafferty, and this is the show where we learn to be better artists. Today we are going to be doing a tutorial on flow, and how to incorporate it into your drawings. And we're going to have very much fun doing that. But before we get into that, we're taking a stroll down the familiar lovely lane because we got some new submissions coming in from Jessica Steele, Rushing Steele. Oh, perhaps siblings. Very awesome. I love the sibling love on the page. Thank you very much. Got stuff coming in from Pepe, Akiro, and Rex. Awesome. So thank you guys once again for submitting your lovely artworks to the KNKL fan page. Or I don't even want to call it the fan page. It's basically your guys' page where you put your artwork that my tutorial helped you out with. So please continue to do so as such. And yes, the world will continue to be a better place. Now with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and jump on into the tutorial. I'm so happy today. Today I'm feeling, again, very, very happy because today's tutorial is one of the subjects that I think kind of gets overlooked quite a bit in terms of teaching, like in like art schools. And I don't know, I guess maybe it's something I'm sure I didn't make it up, but I think of it as probably one of the most important things when you're creating a compositional type piece, right? So, and for those of you who tuned in the previous weeks where we were working with the metal slug piece, we learned about the rule of thirds, right? So if you divide the picture into threes, you basically have this little tic-tac-toe, and then if anything exists within these areas, these are kind of your focal points. And that's just a general rule of thumb. When things are existing on these third lines, it's going to be a lot more pleasing to the eye. You want to stay away from putting things straight in the center and having your happy man there. Actually, he would not be happy because he is not looking good. He's not looking as good as this guy over here with his eyelashes and single eye. All right, so moving on from that, let's go ahead and talk about flow. All right, so I'm going to show you guys exactly what I'm talking about. Today we're going to be drawing none other than my own character, Emma. However, we're going to be drawing her in a slightly different style, maybe a little bit more realistic, I'm guessing. Slightly more realistic. And we're just going to have some fun with some poses, right? And I think that flow, usually I try to relate flow to I got a crumb on my lip, that's great. I ate some bread like right before I started the show, and I'm like, ugh, what is that? Usually I'm relating flow to the pose of the character, but for the purposes of today's exercise, we're actually going to be focusing much more on the entire piece, right? So usually what I like to think of flow as is letting your mind sort of organically create shapes that you will build your picture off of, right? So let's kind of start with, and again, thinking of those third lines, right? There's one there, one there. I mean, not exactly, but you know what I mean. So let's kind of draw something here, and I'm just playing around with some shapes, right? See what kinds of different things that I can come up with here. And again, kind of mix in, notice how I'm mixing in kind of jagged lines and round lines like that. And this is very, very interesting. This is all very interesting. So let's say we come up with a shape like this, okay? And bear in mind, these are just our flow lines, okay? So we will be doing something with this in just a moment. But you can come up with all kinds of different kind of flows, and basically this is what you want your reader's eyes to almost do. You want them to follow this general direction. And this is kind of fun to do before. You can actually do this as you're drawing something, like you can have a general idea of what you want your character to be doing, and then you can throw in the flow afterwards. But it's also kind of fun to work from the opposite end. You almost draw the flow lines first and then design a picture around that. It's very, very fun. It's a little more unorthodox. I don't do it this way that much, but it'll show you how you can actually almost start a picture just with lines like that, right? So let's kind of do something like this. I actually am really liking this a lot. Okay. And this kind of touches on a little bit of a point that I wanted to make today. And I'm sure you guys will be able to relate with this. And that is, oftentimes, the hardest part of starting a picture is just, and in fact, the hardest part of doing almost anything is usually just those first steps, right? Taking the first step is oftentimes the hardest part of doing your entire drawing, of doing, or anything, undertaking a task, right? So if you just think flowy and you just draw lines, I mean, you could even make it into like a tree or something, I don't know. You know, like draw little branches coming off and you can do all kinds of stuff. I mean, that's kind of getting a little bit more into it. That's going to become very organic, and then you're almost designing some sort of plant at that point. But for the purposes of today, make sure that you're focusing just on more simple shapes, more and more simple shapes. So let's go ahead and play around, and I'm going to show you guys basically all the different things that we could do with this flow line. Okay, so I'm going to reduce the opacity on that because we got that going there. So let's see, what are some things that we could do with this? Well, one thing that I'm noticing here is we could have what's very interesting that we could do. One of the biggest things that I'm seeing here is actually like you could have like a character jumping out like this. And again, remember how I was talking about yesterday, showing how I was drawing those guys on their motorcycles? I was working very, very heavily with shapes, right? So these are actually going to represent legs, right? Look at how I'm drawing these legs and the boots, right? And then like this is going to be Emma's skirt, like coming up like this, right? And you kind of start to mess around with your shapes like this, right? I'm going to go ahead and draw this in. And what you can do with this right here, you can draw this right back into an arm like that, and then you can have the axe. Okay, I don't know why that's doing that. It keeps turning into the hand. Why is it turning into the hand? Am I touching the space bar? All right, let me reposition myself. There we go. So that's interesting, right? And let's go ahead and draw up the head like this. Let's have her like looking downward like this. So that's kind of interesting, right? And look at how the pose just naturally comes out from that. And voila, you have instant interesting pose, right? And you can even draw the hair down like that. Okay, so I'm just drawing a couple things out, just a couple ideas that I'm getting from the single flow thing that we got going on, and show you how versatile this is. Okay, so that's number one. Let's go ahead and go on to number two. Another thing that I'm seeing here is actually, and your lines don't have to perfectly follow that, but just think about certain parts of, you know, your character following these lines. Another interesting thing that I'm seeing here is having her head be like this, and then I'll draw, you know, kind of this thing down like this. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and make sure that you guys are getting this here. Good. Good, 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 good. Okay, so now watch this. Watch this. Watch how I lead her shoulder down, like this is her face. She's going to be like angry like this, right? Looking up at us. We'll have her hair going back like this. And this is her angry face. Okay. Not worrying too much about detail because we're focusing on flow, right? Let's go ahead and draw her upper torso and lead this right into her pelvis, pelvical region. And let's see, what do we want to do with her legs? Well, probably just end up following this here to make one of her legs. And what can we do with the other one? We could put it up like that, and then going back like that, and we'll see the edge of the boot there. And then this boot will come out like that. It's one thing we could do. And I don't really like that. I don't like the leg going like that. We'll leave that leg off for a second, but I do know that I want this one going this way. I like the way that this looks. Okay. So let's go ahead and start throwing in these other pieces here, these other body parts. So I know that I want this to continue up this way. And I think what I want to have happening here is have this other arm go up like that and have this hand gripping the axe like that. And did you see what I did there? I was originally, let me see if I can actually show that again. So look at what I did here. This point right here, I was originally planning on this being the elbow, right? And then the hand was going to come down and kind of grip the axe like that, which may have worked, which may work. In fact, that's probably another option that we can explore. But then what I did was I said, okay, instead of the elbow being here, I want the hand to be here. And I changed it so that way her elbow's back this way and her hand is being held right there. So you can basically, the way I think about it is if you need the hand to be there, you can orient the shoulder, you can orient the arm into almost any position to, it can be way out here or it could be right next to the face, Basically the hand can be anywhere within reason, obviously, of where you want it to be. Okay, so let's go ahead and figure out what the rest of this is going to be. I think what I want to be happening here is her thumb will be kind of grasping that, and I'll kind of have her swinging the axe like that. And what this is going to look like is probably going to look like she's swinging the axe more like this, right? In fact, what I want to do here is I think I want to have the axe more outwards like this, right? Because look at how much more motion is happening when the axe is way out here. Flow and what it means to you. This is actually turning more into like another pose tutorial, but I was planning on having like more, I don't know, you can do it with landscape too. I'll probably do a quick example of landscaping, right? Because I do a lot of stuff in the comic where I'm establishing shots and stuff like that. You want to make sure that there's flow happening there as well. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's have the axe more like that. And because of perspective, remember, this is a good thing to keep in mind. We want the perspective of the axe to be going this way, right? This way. The perspective lines are all going like this, right? So keep that in mind. The axe blade is actually going to be occurring more along this type of edge, right? It's a good way to quickly kind of lay out your perspective, is just draw those little grid lines and figure out where your vanishing point is going, where your vanishing point is coming and going from. And so the cool thing about the axe is when you swing it through, these hands are almost meeting each other. These hands are almost meeting each other. You ever like chopped a block of wood with an axe? The way you do it is you start with your hand up top, really high, and then as you come down with your final swing, your hands kind of meet together. So what I'm going to do with that is I'm going to actually move this arm up a little bit more, and it's probably going to make it look a lot more like she finished her swing, like she really, really followed through with it. I'm hoping. We shall see. Let's see. So her elbow is going to be like that, and her hand is going to be grabbing the axe like that. That doesn't look too bad. There's probably some things that I can do to fix that up a little bit more, but for right now I think it accomplishes the point of the exercise. So I'm calling that good. Yeah, that looks pretty sweet. Actually, it looks really sweet. And here's the thing, we can actually grab this axe, and I'd say we could even push it even further. Push it even further like this. Ooh, that looks cool. Or does it? Actually, I like that more. I like that more. Now let's see if we can figure out why that is. Why do I like it more like that as opposed to that? I don't know. For one, I guess the handle is still there, and I kind of saw that, so maybe that was kind of throwing me off. But also I think that it's just kind of following a little bit more of this line that we had originally kind of set up. So again, and look at, I've also added another motion line that's coming through. It's cutting through this entire piece. But it also looks good because you think about it, it's like, look at how these 2 points intersect. You know, it almost creates this X shape. And I don't know, there's just, you think about all the ways that your lines kind of intertwine. You know, because what you want to stay away from is, you know, really, really rigid looking actions, right? You want to stay away from, let me see if there's a way that I can illustrate this and then we'll come right back to it. Let's say that I take this away here. Let's go ahead. Man, we've only been going for 15 minutes? That's awesome! Oh man, I could go for another 45 talking about stuff. This is good because I wanted to get a lot of this stuff out. Like I said, flow is a very, very important subject to me. Makes me very, very happy. Okay, so here's an example of what we would not want to do, okay? You know, you kind of just start drawing a pose here, right? And then let's say, okay, we're going to have her swinging the axe like this, right? And then you're kind of drawing, like, here's the hands here. And then it's like that, right? And she'll have like that Powerpuff Girl leg thing going on. Okay, so she just has like those little Powerpuff Girl boots. That's cute. I'll have the hair flying around because that's cool, right? That's cool. Angry eyes. Okay, so the problem with this is you try to find your line of action, right? It's like, okay, you've got straight up and down. You've got, in fact, let me draw this with a separate color. Separate color, and let's zoom in on this bad boy. So you try to find the line of action. It's like, okay, you've got straight up and down, and you've got a cross thing here, and you got a cross thing there, and there's not like a lot of flow. Like, if anything, the only thing that's flowing really is like this here. The hair is kind of like going into that, but it's very, very rigid and kind of doesn't feel organic, doesn't feel alive, right? Whereas you take something like this, immediately you start to look, I mean, I think another thing that puts things in motion is not having that center of balance, right? Because if she was standing, her balance would have to be here, but it's pushed way over here. So you know that she's definitely like moving this way, and she's swinging this way. So there's like this cool, almost like a yin-yang of action happening here. It's like pushing this way and pushing this way. You know, she's flying this way and swinging this way. So you get whoosh, like that. And it looks very, very cool. You achieve equilibrium, if I were to talk with an accent, with your action, right? And then this flows all the way around here. It kind of comes around. There's like this big circle that's happening. I mean, this kind of flows together, you know, even just the arms and the legs. And maybe with this same type of philosophy, maybe we can figure out where we want the leg to go exactly, right? Because we could have the leg kind of coming up like this. Oh, I actually do like that. Look at how I did that. I basically drew this line up like that and then back. I actually think that looks really good. I think that line right there, that's good. Because again, look, it flows right back into that. See how everything comes together. Everything comes together. And you can generally get away with a lot of stuff, but just kind of like think of it in simpler terms. If you take away the whole entire character, like what are the lines that are occurring between it? And this looks pretty complicated, but you don't have to go this detailed, right? Like if you were to really break it down, it would probably just be this line here and that line like that, right? So you've got like these lines kind of coming together. Those three lines I think are probably the biggest ones that are happening here. Okay. Okay, and then the big line of action that's happening with the axe. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to reduce the opacity on this. I'm going to go ahead and draw that second leg. Because I like the way it looks. And that makes me happy. And we know what happens when I get happy. I do it. All right, so I'm going to actually darken this a little bit more so that way we can see it. And I can draw on that second leg and have it be nice. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to draw this leg up like that. Her knee is going to be there. And then a cool thing that I like to do with legs, like a good general idea, I mean this is kind of going off on a little bit of a tangent, But a good way that I like to remember how to draw legs that are kind of collapsed together, you know, with the knee, is I like to think about it like this. Okay, so say this is like your butt area, right? Basically, an easy way to remember how the leg works when the knee is collapsed, it creates another S shape. It creates an S like this, right? And then the knee kind of goes like that, right? And it kind of goes back, and then there's the foot like that, right? So it creates this S line from the booty. The booty Maximus. That's a very easy way to remember. And then from the knee, you almost go point, point, and then this area right here is almost like a straight line down to the foot. Sometimes in anime, you know, you do this kind of thing, but that looks kind of, I don't know. I kind of tried to shy away from making the knee look like that. And if I do point the knee, then I do this, and then I point it here, right? Bring it on down. So that is basically what I'm doing here with her leg. And it usually looks really nice when you do that, just that little S shape going on there. And then let's go ahead and just draw in. Usually just draw in kind of like the just the torso area, just so I can know what's happening there. Kind of like draw like little booty shorts or little panties, I guess, if you want to, just to get started. That way when I draw the skirt in, it's easy to, you know, obviously measure exactly how far it needs to come down without it being too scandalous. Yes. So probably about there. And then I just kind of lightly erase that. You know, still keep it there, that way I at least know where it is. And I can use it for reference whenever I need it. And then I know that she has her little bandage there. And let's see here. So let's see, if she is jumping this way, then we're going to have her foot. We should have her foot coming up a little bit so you can see her heel. No, actually I don't like that. I want her foot to be more down. Like a dog in yoga. Yeah, that's better. And again, I cannot stress how much playing around with shapes, telling your story, and expressing your character with shapes really means. I'm actually getting rid of this right here, because if she's jumping this way and I want to really, really sell that, this fabric should all be sticking to her leg, right? All this fabric should be sticking to her leg. And then this fabric is going to be much more free-flowing because there's a lot more wind happening there, kind of pushing it off. Okay, and then a little bit of this boot is going to be showing from underneath here. And even look at this. Look at how the boots kind of flow into one another. But try your best not to perfectly flow it, because this, like if the boot was to flow right into the other one like that, that would be what we call a tangent. And you want to stay away from that, okay? So what I did to avoid the tangent was make sure that just a little bit of that boot is sticking out, right? But you still have this sense of flow that's happening here, right? That crescent shape that's going on right there. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and reduce this even further. Let's go ahead and take a look at what we got right now. Alrighty. Again, making sure that knee is not just a perfect point. You know, it can be a small distance between, you know, the edge of the knee and the point, but don't make it just a perfect point. Unless it's something you want to do, unless that's your style. In that case, you can go ahead and do what you want. Okay, so I'm going to create the folds, and always be keeping in mind when you create your folds, where is your, like, what are the ellipses that are happening within this, right? So because her body is turned more towards us, the ellipses are going to be much more like this, right? Whatever you do when you're drawing folds, like in a body that's coming towards you, try your best not to draw them straight across like this, because see, that just looks weird. Just looks really, really weird. Weird! Alright, so yeah, make sure that your folds follow your ellipses, and especially since this leg is raised, you're going to have a little bit of a fold happening there, right? and it's going to stretch out more here because you've got the leg straight. Okay? Now what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to increase the amount of foreshortening that's happening here, and I'm going to actually lower this, right? I'm going to lower this and make it just a tad bit bigger to show a little bit more of the foreshortening that's happening, and push out her back a little bit more. Like I want to have her back coming out a bit more. It's going to look a little bit cooler, I think. You're just having that back be like that. And a comic type of thing that I notice myself doing a lot lately is I'll kind of bring, especially in the shoulders, I'll bring them up and then I'll point them like that. Kind of point them, and then the shoulders will lead right into the neck. Right? And at the tops of the shoulders, I'll do the same thing. I'll kind of point them. I like throwing in little points every now and then. Extra points! Bonus points! That's what we call them. I like throwing bonus points every now and then. Makes me feel good. Makes me feel good. Yeah. Okay. So this is looking pretty good. And then every now and then, like, I'll just kind of like shade things lightly just to help create those shapes and help me to remember. It's like, hey, I want to make sure I have a cast shadow there, you know, on this boot. And, you know, right here, obviously it's going to be kind of in shadow because you're not going to be able to see it as much. Might even do something as much as that just to help this leg stand out from the other one. And when in doubt, whenever you feel like you're drawing, like you just want to kind of take another look at your drawing from another angle, make sure that you flip it. And the way to do that is you just go to adjustments, or rather rotate canvas, and then you rotate it horizontally. And it'll flip it. And then there's a way to bind it to an action button, but I did it once because my coworker showed me how to do it, and then I forgot exactly how I did it. I think it has something to do with actions, like if you go to window and then actions, I think you can hit like record right here, this little button, and then do that and then save it somehow. I forget exactly how it works, but yeah, do a little bit of research and you can figure it out. So I think another thing that I want to do here is actually, this boot is bothering me. It's actually throwing me off, and it's making it hard for me to tell where the other shoe is. So what I'm going to do is actually push this shoe, or this boot, back into perspective, right? So look at what I'm doing here. Telling the story, communicating with shapes, right? Just by creating that shape, I've instantly changed the ellipses going back into space, right? So now we have the boot going back like this, in said fashion. And then we can go ahead and clean that up really quickly. And voila! Can have a little opening there too. Voila, it's a little clearer. Tad bit clearer. I don't know if that looks weird, having your leg come out like that and then go back. That might be a little bit too far. Those ellipses might be a little bit too far back. So we'll compromise. We'll go right in between. So we'll go kind of more like that. There we go. And again, did you notice what I just did there? Let's take a look back at how I literally just changed the perspective of that boot with minimal effort. So let's go back to where I was. Way back here. Way back here. Okay, so look at these ellipses. And let me kind of draw this out. Let me draw out the change. So before we have the leg almost coming out in profile, right? And then you have the knee, and then the boot is going backwards a little bit. So it looks a bit like her leg is broken. So what I did was I changed it just a little bit. I changed these ellipses. And just by communicating how much space is between here, right? Like with more space, it's going to look like it's going further back and into space, right? Or it's going to look more turned toward us. But if there's less space between basically like the tongue and the overlapping thingy, the mouth of the shoe, it's going to look like it's more in profile. So again, never underestimate the power that subtle changes can do for you. And just like, yeah, pay attention to little things. When you find something that works for you like that, you know, like, oh, to make the shoe look like it's more profile, all I got to do is reduce the amount of space between the tongue and the overlappy bits, Those are the kinds of things you want to store up here or down in your sketchbook as a little note for the future to your kids. To your kids who want to be artists. Okay? So already that's looking much, much better. Much, much, much better. Cool. Going back. Looking very nice. I'm going to go ahead and kick that out a little bit. I'm going to draw that little strap of her dress. Up there like that. And yeah, you guys can start to see our image is taking shape. Because we started with that solid foundation underneath, look at how everything is beginning to take shape. And even this thing, like this shape here, we didn't use it as much, but what's interesting is that it almost still goes with it, right? Because the shape of the axe blade actually goes this way. And if you were to continue this direction with the axe blade, it kind of curves in such a way that it leads you back to that foot, and it does kind of create that oval, right? So this might not look like it's occurring somewhere, but it actually is. And yeah. And again, it doesn't have to all be perfect. In fact, I was planning on doing a few of these poses, so maybe I can do a couple other ones. But yeah, look at how this one, again, same flow, just a different drawing, right? Different drawing, same flow. However, this one I feel is much more dynamic and fun, so we'll continue with this one. And then, yeah, let's see how much time we got. 7:33. We're doing quite well. Quite well. Lately I've been thinking that I've been answering questions, and it's been taking a little bit longer. We've actually been going over an hour, and I want to make sure that I keep the shows to generally an hour. So I'm thinking about, instead of making the Q&A session the last 5 minutes of the show, I'm actually going to start making it the last 10 minutes of the show. Because, yeah, it seems like people like it a little bit more when I go in depth with some of my answers and usually maybe tell a story along the way. So we're just going to try it today, see how it works out. If it's lame, then we'll just go back to the last 5 minutes. And then if you guys like going over, yeah, you guys like going over time, obviously, but I want to try to keep these to about an hour. Just for, I don't know, for the heck of it. For the heck of it! Alright, so continuing. But I'm feeling good today. Like, today was a good day. I went out and got a new book today, and I actually got to show you guys this. It's a cool book. It's called The Richest Man in Babylon, and I don't know exactly what it is about, other than it's supposed to be inspiring for people starting their own businesses, right? Which is what I'm doing. And it was recommended to me by an awesome man by the name of Jim Rohn. Jim Rohn is a man who was a motivational speaker from the 80s up until, a couple of years ago. He actually passed away recently. But I've been watching a lot of his talks on YouTube. And strangely, he has a lot of really, really cool, he talks about business and stuff, but what's very interesting is that a lot of these principles and things that he teaches are very, very applicable to life. He teaches that, your success. And this is why I talk to you guys so much about, being in good frames of mind and being happy and being positive, with your journey of art, right? Because a lot of success in life is not really about getting something or getting somewhere. It's about what you become along the way, what you become along your way and during your journey, what that creates of you. What that creates of you is where your happiness will come from. So, yeah, he really recommended that book, and I went out and I got it. I'm excited to read that. So, yes, that was a good day today. It was a good day. Alrighty. Oh, and you know what else I did? You guys are asking about Scion. I have not heard anything from Scion yet. They said they're getting back to us sometime this week, so it might be tomorrow, it might be Friday, it might be Sunday at 12:59 or 11:59 p.m. But rest assured, this week we'll be finding out whether we are going to LA and have a chance at getting a whole new rig and a whole new car. We'll see what happens with that. But yes, I'll keep you guys posted on all that good stuff. I'm just kind of rambling and drawing as I go. But yes, but the cool thing about that was my good friend Jake got me up out of my seat today because I was, just working on my comic. And he's like, hey man, we should go test drive that. We should go test drive that car right now. And I was like, yeah, we should. So we went down to the local car dealer and I smooth talked my way into a car. Actually, no, I didn't really have to smooth talk my way. But I went in with the intention of getting into that car and test driving it in a manual because that is what I'm going to get if I do actually win the car. I do want to get a manual stick shift because it will connect me to the car in a way that others might not find possible. So, yes, test driving the car just further proved the point that I want it, and it further proved the point that it will make a more than suitable MMObile for when we put the stickers and everything on there. It's going to be very, very, very nice. Very nice. And this face is going to be just kind of a placeholder because it's pretty ugly as it stands. But again, like I said, pay attention to the emotions that you create in your sketches, right? Because even though that looks very simple, you'll find oftentimes that as you go in and then you like add on to it or clean it up, you'll compare the two and you'll look back at this old sketch and be like, there's more emotion in just these little chicken scratches than there is in this cleaned up version. And that is the point where you go back and you figure out, okay, what is it that I did here that I lost along the way? So this is not all for nothing. It will all serve its purpose eventually. So, but right now we're not doing a face tutorial. We're doing flow. So let's continue. Let's go ahead and use the hair to create some extra flow. Let's go ahead and draw in some hair coming through like, okay, so if she was moving like that, her hair would probably be a little bit more up. A little bit more up and flying in the wind. And obviously we got this, but also I don't want to obscure this hand too much. I don't want to obscure that hand too much. In which case we could possibly move it out a little bit. We could possibly move it out just a teeny bit. By doing something like that. Tiny adjustments. Tiny adjustments that don't mess with the piece too much. Let's go ahead and draw something down like that. And let's have the hair. Do we want the hair? No, the hair doesn't look good like that. Looks like crap. Let's have the hair coming down like that. That doesn't look too bad. But yeah, finishing off what I was talking about earlier, the test drive went great. The car is beautiful inside and out. It performs well. It's very, very easy to drive. It's got like these cool seats that like hold. They're like really nice bucket seats that like hold you in. So like when you're turning and taking a sharp corner, it'll really like hold you in the seat. And it's just really, really like nice, and it looks beautiful. And it's fun to drive, and yeah, I want it. There's no question in my mind that I want it enough to get it. I want it enough to get it. I think I want it more than anybody else. Well, I don't know. But that test drive definitely helped out quite a bit. All right, so going back to this, let's see. How are we feeling? How are we feeling? It's not bad. Not bad. Okay, guys, so what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to demonstrate really quickly with these last 10 minutes. I'm going to demonstrate how you can create a background that will also flow with your character. Okay? So here's a great example. Let's say we're drawing this as a comic kind of panel. We're just creating a picture in general. We're going to place our character over here. That way it's aligned with the rule of thirds, right? So it's like that. And then the face is occurring along the other rule of thirds line. Okay? And then what we're going to do is we're going to start adding in a background. I'm going to show you guys what not to do first, because it's good to know what not to do. And I'm going to show you a way that will help you, hopefully. Okay, so the last thing that you want to do if you have a character that's performing such an elaborate, or rather action-oriented pose, just reading this over here. People are saying I should color and finish this drawing. I probably will, because I kind of like it. Or if I don't, yeah, I'll probably use it for something, for sure. I'll use it for something, for sure. But back to the task at hand. Whenever you draw a character like this with so much action going on, the last thing you want to do is go in and draw a background like this. You know, like say there's like some buildings in the background. You know, you want to stay away from this. Like, straight up and down. Really, really lame, boring, crappy. Don't do that. Don't do that. Okay? I'm watching you. Don't do that. Okay. What you do want to do is take that same approach to your background that you did with your character and think about, whoa, you got all this cool flow happening here. You know, all this cool stuff happening. You know, you want to think of things that will come through the environment that will help point back to your focal point, which is here, obviously, the character's face and the general body. And then you also want to make sure that your horizon in general is off-center, right? You want to make sure your horizon line is off-center. And then placing the horizon line can also add quite a bit of action to your scene, right? Like a lower horizon line, I've noticed, oftentimes makes things look a little bit more epic and cool, like you're looking up at a character. So more often than not, I usually like to place the horizon line quite low and then let other things around the environment kind of fill it in. So let's say that we had, let's have her look like she's really kind of off the ground here. So I'm going to push her even further this way. Then I'm going to have her actually off of the ground like this, right? So she's jumping like this, swinging this way. And this might work, this might backfire on me, so we'll see what happens. But then we can go back in here and be like, okay, well, we could have like some buildings over here, right? But notice how they're following kind of this line, right? And then kind of have like a closer foreground building here. Some sort of something that, you know, exists right here, right? Because again, you want to think about, you know, what's foreground, midground, and further back, right? You want to think about all those things. So say you could have a building right up in here that's like really, really close. And then you could have like these things kind of going further back. You know, think about the perspective going back here, and then kind of have some buildings come up here, right? So you'd almost have this type of thing going on. You have these buildings in the distance. You can maybe have like some telephone poles or something. You know, like things to help show your depth, you know, what's happening. And then maybe this could be like a, oh, this could probably be like an underpass or like a bridge for the freeway. That'd be kind of cool. Just kind of play around. This is kind of getting into that eraser art type of vibe that I was doing before. Remember I was talking about drawing shapes and then erasing to create light and form? It's kind of going into that. You can have like a little bit of the sign of the freeway kind of hanging off here. Something like that. That'd be interesting. And then we'll have, you know, I don't know why she would be jumping like this in the middle of the street, but whatever. Maybe she'd be fighting some zombies, you know? There's always probable cause for everything that you want to do. Just got to be creative. Got to think about it. Think about it. Use your brain. I know that it's hard for some of us, me included. Me mostly. Me mostly. It's hard to do that. But sometimes you must. For the good of all mankind. And then just go ahead and start painting in kind of values, kind of do some sketching, you know, and be like, oh, maybe there could be like some clouds here, you know, like some kind of dusky looking, kind of scary rain clouds. So you're kind of simultaneously sketching values as well as creating flow, right? And again, you know, kind of have like, maybe there could be like a sunburst happening here that all create lines that point to your character, right? You know, think about that, as well as your value. If your character is going to be dark against this background, then you want to make sure that your character is, or that you want to make sure that the part of contrast is behind her, right? Behind her head. So let's go ahead and quickly throw in, let's make this like a multiply layer here. Let's go ahead and quickly throw in like her mask, you know, just so we can get a better idea of what we're working with here. Again, this isn't a final mask or anything, but this is going to help us kind of visualize our composition, and then we can make changes from there. And what's really cool is if I have time, I want to show you guys. Yeah, I think I do have time. I have time, and I can show you guys how to basically start Frankensteining, which is basically like grabbing stuff and really like start messing with the picture to get a composition that you want. And as well as a focal type of focal length, right? And that is a whole nother tutorial in itself, but I'll show you guys like a quick little trick that I like to do. Okay, so check it out. We got this going on, right? And I think part of it is, it's pretty cool. It's not bad. But I think one of the things that I'd like to do is, again, I think I want to actually make her move even further. So she's really off balance, right? So she's really flying through the air like that. And then let's go ahead and increase the size of the picture because I want her to be actually a little bit bigger. We want to zoom in a little bit closer. And I'm going to show you guys a little bit of a trick in terms of focal length, how it works. A couple little tricks that you can do. Hopefully. I think that I can do this. Again, this is not my exact forte, and this is what I think you would consider this cheating a little bit. But as long as you understand how it works, you can kind of work it back into looking properly. So an example of what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make her look like she's actually coming more towards us, like her legs are further behind and her torso is coming more towards us, and this axe blade is going to be very, very close to the camera. So watch how I go about doing this. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take this whole entire thing, I'm going to hit Control T, and then I'm going to hit Shift Control Alt, and then hit this edge here. And what that's going to do is it's going to sort of, like it almost turns it into a piece of paper, right? And look at how it automatically kind of starts to push the character towards us, right? Like that. And it almost starts to create a little bit of that illusion, right? That the character is coming toward us, more towards us. And this is a good way to start, I would say. It's a really, really good way to start. But then you want to make sure that you grab like stuff like this, like the upper torso, and you can really play this up. You can like make it really big and make it like that, right? And then take the axe blade. In fact, let me shrink these things down because it's actually looking a little bit too much now. And you can have like characters like even cropped off on the side. Try to stay away from the tangent of like making it touch the edge barely. Really try to, like if you're going to crop the character, push it off. But in this case, I think I'm going to crop more of the axe as opposed to her head. I'll crop the axe more. So again, grab the axe, increase that even bigger. And look at how that starts to already create a little bit more of that illusion, right? And hitting Control and this thing will actually help to, again, think of it as a piece of paper. Look at how it almost rotates the blade. This is a way that you can very, very quickly start messing around with things, right? But of course, that only works so much because you look back at these boots. You look back at these boots and they look weird. And the reason why they look weird is because your ellipses, the ellipse of this being like that, is not reinforcing the way that her leg is going. See, her leg is now working this way, right? It's going this way, and these are the ellipses. So your boot would actually have to follow these same ellipses back. And you can kind of fix that, you know, you can kind of go back and tweak little things like that. And you'll immediately start to notice your picture taking on a whole new light. Now it feels like it's really like she's coming towards us. She's like in our face. And I love that. And again, this is a little bit of a crutch to use Photoshop to do it. But, I mean, the way I look at it is, hey, it doesn't really matter. I mean, in the professional world, it's all about the final result. So whatever you need to do to get to that point, it's fine. And what's cool is that because you created this with because you created this with the initial flow chart, I guess you could call it, the initial flow diagram, you can actually get away with it, right? Because it's still a dynamic piece and there's still flow lines that are happening within it. I'm actually going to shrink down this hand here. And basically the general idea of focal length in a nutshell, the way I like to think of it, is if you want something to have like a shorter focal length, basically like that cool, really exaggerated, you know, like the guy's coming at you and his fist is like giant, you know, like look at the cam here. Like if you want some guy with his hand like coming at you like this, and look how my thumb is like as big as my head, you know, but because of the perspective, you know, it looks fine. If you want to do that, make sure that you kind of basically with a short focal length, it makes things that are far away from you look like they're even farther. So basically, by contrast of this hand versus this hand, look at that. You know, this hand is like monstrous next to this hand. And then by contrast, if you have a large focal length, like if the camera was way, way far away, and like here's a good example. So check that out, and then look at how my hands now compare, right? Now this hand is almost, I mean, it's still bigger than the other one. But since the camera is further away, if you were to like zoom in, you know, with like a large focal length, it would still retain the same properties. Whereas I get close, this hand is monstrous, this hand is tiny. So that's kind of my focal length in a nutshell. Again, that deserves an entire tutorial to itself. But I hope that helps you guys out for the time being. And there's some great books that explain it a lot better than me. There's one called Framed Ink. That is Framed Ink. I forget who actually illustrated that, but it is a great book, and it has a really cool little thing in there about focal length, and it really, really helped me out in terms of creating comics. And there's like mathematical stuff in it, and it's like, you know, like how to really tell exactly what's going on, but for the most part, just knowing how it works really, really helps out a lot. And so I would suggest that you guys go out and pick up a copy of that. It also breaks down composition into very, very simple shapes, and that also helped me out a lot as well. But rather than plagiarize their material completely, I'd rather just take what I've learned from it, tell it in my own style, and then hopefully it'll help you guys out. So let's go ahead and do a little bit of a comparison here. In fact, let's flip it. So now check that out. Oh man, all this action is happening because of the focal length. We're making things that are close to us look like they're even closer. Makes us look like she's in our face. That axe is like barely like missing our heads, and we can even push that even further if we wanted to, as opposed to this. All right, see what we did there? We basically, let me sum that up one more time how I did that. Yeah, just very, very quickly. And then, in fact, while I'm doing that, please cast your questions over the castle walls because it is 7:55 and we're going to take questions and then we're going to wrap up episode 72 of the KNKL Show. Oh. Sorry. Okay, so let me sum that up twice. Basically, I was comparing this here. See, that's the one thing that I hate about doing that. I put the thing like underneath the chat, that way I can't like, because I hate it when I notice myself like looking at myself on the camera, but sometimes that's bad because sometimes I forget to show you guys what I'm actually working on, and that sucks. That really sucks. I hope while I was working, her head wasn't terribly off screen. Oh, looks like we were good. Okay, so basically I was just talking about comparing this to this, right? See how much less exciting this is? Because the character is almost on a flat plane. It's almost on a flat piece of paper, as opposed to, it's going basically from this to this. You know, see how much cooler that is? Having that plane come towards you. Bam, like that. See? Now the axe is just like swinging right in front of your face. And it looks a lot cooler. Right? She's jumping towards you. And that's way, way more fun. So I hope that that helps you guys out. And I was going to sum up one more time how I went about doing that. So remember, basically what I did was I hit Control T to select the entire character. Then I hit Shift, Control, and Alt, which basically widens the screen, or widens and kind of puts like a faux perspective on it, right? And you can kind of play around, start with things like that. And then after that, I just started kind of lassoing and bringing things out that I wanted to. Like this area here, I say I want the torso to be bigger and closer to us. So I did like something like that. And you can do that as much as you want. You could even grab the head and like make it a little bit bigger. And grab the head, make it a little bit bigger like that. And this is very, very easy to do when you're in the sketch stage, and therefore I highly recommend that you do it during this time, because it's going to be a lot easier to do it at this point than after you have your final lines, right? After you have your final lines and everything's all... In fact, I kind of like this one a little bit more already. Her legs are further back with this one, but I kind of like... I don't know, there's something about that one that I like a little bit more. I don't know what it is. I don't know, maybe I'm just being crazy. But see, that's why it's fun. You get to do a few different styles and a few different takes on what you like. And because of the magic of Photoshop, you can create what you wish. All right, peeps. Moving on to the questions. All right, Kill Nerve is asking, do you ever use the golden ratio as a shape to base your flow on? Golden ratio as a shape to base your flow on. Well, the golden ratio being you're talking about the rule of thirds. I'm assuming that's what the golden ratio is. I think it's just another term for the rule of thirds. I don't necessarily base my flow off of it necessarily. I mean, when we first started the picture, if you look back here, the original flow, it kind of did happen upon that, but it kind of does cross areas of the rule of thirds. So I would say yes and no. I think the most important thing to do, like if you're doing a background, then yes, it should follow a little bit more of that rule of thirds type thing. But it's hard to explain exactly what I'm going into with that. I think the most important thing with flow is that you just make sure that it's almost like the most common term that I find myself running into with art and just like the philosophy behind it is consistency. As long as your drawing is consistent with your flow, your pose is consistent with the flow, your background complements and is consistent with that, I think that you can't go wrong, right? See this? It's much more consistent. There's no like straight lines. The horizon is tilted and everything kind of complements what's happening here, right? So I think as long as you do that, and again, it's occurring along the golden ratio, the rule of thirds, you know, bam, bam, like that. So, next question. Moving on. Oh, the spiral shape repeated through nature. Oh, that golden ratio. Yes, I have seen that. I have seen that spiral shape. I personally haven't made pictures using that exactly, but I think it would be cool. I mean, obviously, if you use it, it's probably going to work out pretty well, because I know exactly what picture you're talking about. It's the one with like, there's like a structure and it has that golden ratio in it. And yeah, I definitely think that you couldn't go wrong with that. But feel free to experiment with your own things. All righty then. I will take one more question, and then we are going to go ahead and wrap up episode 72 of the KNKL Show. Until then, I'm going to go ahead and pull up iTunes so we can have our epic outro. I'm super excited for tomorrow because we're going to be continuing with Emma, issue 2. We're going to be jumping right back into where we left off yesterday, drawing more motorcycles. Well, Actually, not so many motorcycles. We're going to be drawing basically tiny little motorcycles heading towards the house. You know, anticipation, anticipation. It'll be so awesome. So awesome. All right. Vanilla Sadio is asking, how do you color the image fast? You showed it in one of your tutorials, but I forgot. Vanilla Sadio, I think the best way to basically pick your colors is to do little thumbnails. And obviously I can't like draw that exactly right now. But basically, like if you were to take a bunch of versions of this picture right here, and basically copy the picture that you're drawing and just make multiple arrangements of it. Make, you know, like 6 or 9 or 20. I don't care how many you want to do, but usually I try to stick around like 3 to 6. And then just start working with your colors. Working with your colors at a very small stage, because at that point you can kind of oh, and another thing that I want to do, and this is probably what you're talking about, is color maps or color gradient maps, and that I can show you. So let's go ahead and collapse this all into one layer. That I can show you. So say you had all your values laid out, and in some ways this is kind of laid out so it's valued. I mean, you got like your background and this. So a quick way to start throwing things on there is you go to layer, and then you go to new adjustment layer, then you go to the magical option of gradient map. You click OK, and then behold, you choose your colors, right? Basically this is going from light to dark. So you can pick your dark color. Let's say we want it to be dark red for some reason. Okay, we got that. And then you pick your light color over here. Let's say it's going to be like orange. All right, and then you can immediately start to throw colors onto your values, right? So you want to transfer, you know, through orange. And for some reason, if she was fighting in a pit of molten lava, this could be a quick way for us to get a feel for mood and kind of like what our atmosphere is going to be. And the reason why I like gradient maps is because it very quickly allows you to throw color onto it and see immediately how it's going to affect the drawing. You don't have to go like painstakingly like paint all this stuff in or kind of guess with colors. And eventually you will have to start throwing in colors of your own. Obviously you can't just use these 3 colors unless you're doing some sort of stylistic kind of simplified piece. But the cool thing about that is be like, oh, on second thought, I kind of want to like make the light blue, you know, make the lights like turquoise. And what's cool is that the computer takes care of all the transitions. You know, even this looks cool. It almost looks kind of like an artsy piece, you know, with all the cool kind of mixes of the colors. And that's why I like gradient maps, is because the computer already does all the calculations for you, and it basically, and then you can use the sliders and basically dictate how much of, you know, the light is overtaken by those things. So I hope that helps you out. It helped me out. It opened my eyes. I love gradient maps. I use them all the time for the backgrounds in Emma because it saves time and it quickly allows me to create mood. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to end episode 72 of the KNKL Show. Thank you once again for joining me live on Ustream. For all you lazy people on YouTube who can't get up at 4 o'clock in the morning like these people over in Sweden, shame on you. Shame on you. Just kidding. Yes, but please, thumbs up if you like it, thumbs down if you don't. Tomorrow we're going to be jumping right back into the comic. I'm super excited about that. You guys have yourself a great night. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Till then, you guys take care.